This is the second chapter of Unit 4A. In Unit 4A, in the first chapter, we covered everything that was in Unit 4. Unit 4A is specially made for Ontario. The training material GAS Trade 3 material is made for all of Canada, but every province and maybe territory is its own rule makers and lawmakers, so every province has its own specific rules, and therefore for Unit 4, CSA publishes specific editions called 4A for every province separately. Now, for Chapter 2, we're going to talk about TSSA, as we covered before, the Technical Standards and Safety Act itself. So the Technical Standards and Safety Act is one of the Government of Ontario Acts. We talked about it before, and it is supposed to be administered by the Ministry of Government and Consumer Services, but the ministry had given the delegated the responsibility to TSSA, that is the authority. So the TSSA is administering the TSSA Act, and it is also reinforcing or enforcing it. All right, so how are we going to do this? For this chapter, what I need you to do is I need you to find a way to get to the website of the TSSA Act itself. Now, you can do that in a few different ways. One is just simply go to ontario.ca/laws, and then from there you can search for your whatever act you're looking for, or you can simply search in a search engine for the Technical Standards and Safety Act, and the first thing you need to find, I'm assuming, is the location or the website, the link to the website of the Act. One of the two ways work, but most importantly, I need you to bookmark this, and you're going to refer to it more and more when you're doing your assignment, Blackboard assignment. Now, you see here the website for the Act is uniform, and all the other acts have the same format for presenting the content of the rules, and you can simply go to the regulations part and find where the regulations are under this act, and you can see what was removed from this act throughout the years. However, you can download it, you can print it, and you can browse it, and obviously it being a rule, it is in public domain. There is no intellectual property issue. You can download it, you can publish it as much as you want. It's the law of the land. It is important that it is in the public domain. All right, so how are we going to study this subject? We're going to look at the table of contents. So if you simply go and scroll down on the page itself, you're going to see that there is a table of contents, and in this table of contents you're going to find the sections, very much like the code book, and then you're going to find certain subsections. Not all sections have subsections, some of them don't, but most importantly, the table of contents is going to give you for example, if you're looking for a definition, you look out there. If you're looking for another topic, you simply look at the table of content and click the link here. This is a hyperlink that will take you to the location on the website. So the way I would like you to study this is I would like you to answer the questions. Again, for this, you're going to go on to Socrative.com, and you're going to go to the room either GAST1013 A, or you're going to go to GAST GAST1013B. You go to A if your class starts at 8 a.m. and you go to B if your class starts at 10 a.m. That's how you're going to, and don't forget you need your student ID to get into this. Just a reminder, this Socrative part is not for marks. Unlike the course that I teach you, GAST1014, Piping and Tubing Systems, that is the course where Socrative is for marks. This is learning aid, and I know throughout the years that students have benefited a lot. If you don't do this, you're not going to learn. You're not going to do well in the G3 exam down the road. All right. So how can one recognize a TSSA inspector? See, this is one of those questions where students get confused because they don't know where to look for the answer. Most of the questions I'm going to ask you about TSSA, the Act, are going to be questions where the answers are in the Act. So you go to their website and you start looking for the answer. And how you look for the answer? Well, you're going to try and find a topic that kind of matches this topic. It's the how do you identify an inspector? If someone someone you don't know comes into your job site and says, well, I'm a TSSA inspector, do this or that, and starts giving you orders, how are you going to know that they are necessarily a TSSA inspector? Well, A, their picture will be located on the official website. I highly doubt that. All inspectors wear white hard hats that say inspector. Well, yeah, my daughter can do that too if she wanted. Their business card will identify their job function as inspector. Business cards are not IDs, official IDs. By examining their identification badge or card, well, that makes a little bit more sense to me. So therefore, obviously D is going to be our correct answer. Now you might kind of ask me, okay, but how are we going to find out where the answers are? All right. So what I want you to do is I want you to, as I said before, go to the website itself, the TSSA Act, this here, right? And then you are going to click on inspectors here. Why? Well, because we're looking for stuff about inspectors, right? And here I go, directors, inspector. So directors are higher level decision makers than inspectors, and then investigators and assessors. So you see how there are 4 different roles here. We're still looking for the inspector role, and I start just skimming through the rules here in case I find something, and what I immediately notice is that I'm not looking for restriction. I'm not looking for appointments of directors or inspectors. I'm more interested in identification, and here it is. It says this is section 4A or 4.3, okay, subsection 3. A director, inspector, investigator, or an assessor, any of those 4 roles, shall produce on request evidence of his or her appointment. It's in other words, a badge. All right, so there it is. It would have been much easier. It would have been much easier if I simply added something like go to TSSA section 4.3, right? Obviously, then it would have been easier for you to go and find the answer there. So for the beginning, that's what I did, just to make life a little bit easier for you. Maybe not this question, but the questions coming forward will have that reference to the section and the subsection in the TSSA where you can find it. If there is a question like this without reference. It means that I am trying to challenge you to find the answer on your own. So let's see what this question is about. In addition to the gas technician's responsibilities to acquire training prior to conducting work, who else shares this responsibility? Ooh, that's an interesting question. All right. So the Minister of Consumer Affairs, absolutely not. The minister is not going to be responsible for your training. His or her employer, that makes a little bit more sense, because if I'm hiring a gas technician, I would like to see their licenses. The Technical Standards and Safety Authority, not really. What they do is they examine people, they test people, and they issue licenses, they revoke licenses, they give fines. But if you are going to go to work on a job site, TSSA is not responsible for making sure that you have a license there. They will come and inspect it. So I'm going to just, kind of move A and C and say that this is the correct answer. Now, is this in the TSSA body itself? It isn't. I am trying here to establish a certain understanding of the TSSA itself, and I'm trying to explain to you that there are things that relate to the rule. In this case, the most important rule in the TSSA is that everyone who works with fuel should be certified for that kind of work. But you need to know that it is your employer's responsibility. In addition to your responsibility, it is your employer's responsibility. It's not TSSA's responsibility. Another thing here, name the Ontario Act directly related to safety and standards within the fuel industry. The Fuel Safety Act, the Technical Standard and Safety Act, the Technical Fuel and Pressure Safety Act, the Mandatory Fuel Standards Act. A simple search on Google will find that those are not real. So the only correct answer would be B in this case, right? So B is the correct answer. TSSA is not what? Ontario Act directly relating to standards and safety within the gas industry? I think it is. TSSA is not the authority accredited to issue fuel industry certificates? I think it is. The authority having jurisdiction in the code book? I think it is. The authority that publishes the code book? This is what TSSA is not. So I'm gonna select D as the correct answer. D is the correct answer here. The Technical Standard and Safety Act is N or A. Ontario Government Act. Well, we have discussed this. As a matter of fact, to find it, I said you can go to ontario.ca/laws. Isn't that proof that it is an Ontario Government Act? Yes. Is it a federal government act? No. Is it a federal government act that is adopted by the Ontario government? No. Is it a Ministry of Labor Act? No. Here's a small technique that you can use to find out whether something is, for example, the Ministry of Labor Act or not. You could go and search for the Ministry of Labor. Did you see that? The Ministry of Future. Okay. So I'm just going to go to the Ministry of Labor, and then once you're there, by the way, this is the ministry that will issue your refrigeration license if you get your apprenticeship there. This, don't forget, very important. And what you need to do is you simply kind of scroll down and see their legislation part. These are all the acts that this ministry is responsible of administering, and as you can see, You can search. There is no TSSA Act here, or TSS Act here. As opposed to what? As opposed to if we went and found our consumer services. So if we go there and we look at the act here and the legislation, which is here, oh, you can't see it. Legislation, and immediately simple, and they have a bunch. A simple scroll down is going to show you that Technical Standards Safety Act is under the Ministry of Consumer Services. But again, they delegated the responsibility of administering it to TSSA. All right, so let's get back to our questions here. Again, the TSSA is an Ontario Government Act. Which organization is responsible for administering fuel regulations for the installation of gas and oil appliances in Ontario? The TSSA? No, well, yes. The Canadian Gas Association? Not really, no. The Energy, Mines and Resources? No. Canadian Standards Association? No. The CSA? Remember, they are the people with ties and suits in behind desks. They don't do enforcement like police. So that leaves us A as the correct answer. All right. Who can service gas equipment if under the direct supervision of a certificate holder? Now, as you're going to find out that this is an exploratory question that is in-depth studied in Chapter 3, but I am asking you this question to see whether you can make sense of it. So, who can service gas equipment if under the direct supervision of a certificate holder? A, another certificate holder. B, anyone. C, any person who has read the appliance manual. D, a certificate holder whose certificate has expired. I think we've established, I've mentioned it maybe 3 times in this video and several other times in the other videos, that someone who's working with fuel or fuel appliances must be certified for that work. Okay, so A would be correct in that case. Anyone would not be correct because we have the criteria of having the license for that work. Any person who read the appliance is absolutely incorrect. And a certificate holder whose certificate has expired, no. And again, this is in the spirit of the TSS Act, and where the most important rule in the TSS Act is that someone who works on fuels or fuel appliances must be certified for that work, to do that work. Ooh. Who is the designated administrative authority in the province of Ontario? Fancy words. Administrative authority. Okay. Who is designated? You guys know designated mean the person who is given the responsibility, like designated driver. And then administrative authority, meaning the authority that makes the rules. If you remember, this is there is the administrative authority, and there's the inspection authority. Inspection authority is TSSA. So administration authority, is it the CSA? Never. They have no authority as like that. Canadian Gas Association doesn't have it. Ontario Gas Safety Authority, I have to check that name and see if it is real or not. Technical Standards and Safety Authority, it is, even though it's the ministry who delegated it to TSSA, the authority, but this is the correct answer. So as you can see, D here is the correct answer. Number 9. Which of the following is the ultimate authority under the TSS Act as it applies to the installation of natural gas, yada yada. All right, so we're looking for the ultimate, right? That's one word. Authority under the act. Who has the ultimate authority under this act? Not the federal government. They have no say in this particular act. It's a Ontario Government Act. So I guess Ontario government is. National Energy Board? No, that's not ultimate authority. Ontario Ministry of Energy, well, yeah, okay. Why don't you search Ontario Ministry of Energy, go to the end of their web page, to the legislation, and see if TSSA has an act mentioned here. It isn't. So we're going to pick B as the correct answer here. All right. Now, this is an example where I start giving you reference to the section and the subsection numbers where you need to go to find the answer. So according to the TSS Act, an inspector shall not enter a place or a part of a place that is used as a dwelling without, so dwelling means residence. An inspector shall not enter a place or a part of a place that is used as a dwelling without what? Occupiers' informed consent, presence of the police, warrant from a judge, professional witness. Professional witness is not something I've ever heard in any serious conversation. It's an expert witness in the court, but that's not it. Presence of the police might be. Warrant from the judge. Well, the police needs warrant from a judge if they're going to prosecute you if they are intending to prosecute you. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to section 17 to B right now, and we're going to try and find that rule pertaining to this. There are a couple of ways you can obviously do this. My favorite way is to hit Control F. When you hit Control F, you see this search or find option is open, and type 17, and it usually takes you to the next number 17. This is just by luck. I jumped here, but you might want to use these arrows to go up and down to the next ones. Anyway, an inspector may conduct an inspection and may, as part of the inspection, enter and inspect any reasonable time the land and premise where any of the things, parts or things, class of things to which this act and regulations rule apply. Okay, so here are a few things going on here. For this, ensuring compliance with the act is important, right? Ensuring that the authorization holder remains entitled to the authorization, or determine whether it has a... So these three subclauses do not necessarily apply to us. Let's see about the limitations of power here. An inspector shall not use force to enter and inspect lands, so they cannot use force, right? In the past, by the way, the rule said that they could use reasonable force. They changed that. And enter any part of premise that are being used as a dwelling. Aha, this might be our answer. Except with the consent of the owner or the occupier. All right. So it seems like we already have our answer. We are looking at A. According to that rule, this is what we need. A.